Hello friend and welcome to Borgcast 17.7, our latest discoverage, and a bit later on we'll be talking about the latest episode, which is Unification Part 3. But first of all, we have a bit of business with scavengers to deal with from last week's episode.
Yes, possibly quite a lot.
Yes, we start with some MP3 from Pare, as I'm now calling him.
Yes, we don't know why. Yeah, sorry.
Hello orcs, Parry here to talk about scavengers. First, just again for clarification, I think I'm too late to get the feedback in normally, but I haven't actually listened to the podcast yet, so very much my thoughts as they came. Now, the name Scavengers always brings to mind a weird 1990s Crystal Mazy Gladiator kind of series which starred John Leslie, usually taking management consultants and gym instructors around a fake spaceship. It was weird. Anyway, this episode, so this one has Giorgio and Burnham kind of go to a planet which is either the prison from The Running Man or the prison from the Rutger Hauer film Wedlock, but either way it involves a force field that blows up your head if you try to run away. In this case it's not really a prison, it's kind of a work camp. And I suppose you would get people salvaging loads of stuff from the various starships and ship graveyards. I liked Giorgio was on good form here, I just thought her constant abuse of that rather snooty Orion was a lot of fun. We have the Burnham book relationship coming to the fore, or book, I suppose, Bookham Dano, Baruch, I don't know. I'm not good at making up ships. And I kind of thought this one was okay. I liked the weird thing with Giorgio. So there is something going on with her. We kind of saw. Do we now have to have a Giorgio watch as well as a Debnor watch? Because at the moment it looks like she's come into contact with the Prothean beacon and is constantly getting signals about the oncoming reefers. Been playing a bit of Mass Effect. Just the flashbacks are awfully similar. But I know a lot of people have been saying this one is filler. And I wouldn't quite go that far. I'd say it kind of did feel like. I think progress is happening. I think this is in here for a mechanical reason. It was to get Book back, but also, I think we are running towards Burnham temporarily leaving the Discovery, possibly to follow her own. I'm off to find out what caused the burn. Agenda with Book and maybe some other people. Maybe our sad Andorian. I wouldn't mind that. I'd like the sad Andorian. Giorgio, Burnham, Book, and the sad Andorian, and of course Grudge go off to find the burn. Meanwhile, the Discovery has other adventures. I did enjoy the Discovery getting its upgrades. They all get their new comm badges with rank pins on them. Although not new uniforms still for some reason, but yeah. And they got the consoles upgraded, so they have the living matter. And Stamets has had, him and I can't remember the character's name. They've kind of made a bit of a bond, and she gave him a goo interface for his spore drive, which is apparently a lot nicer than having spikes put into your arm. So that's a thing. One of the things I thought, I loved seeing Culber and Stamets in their jammies again, and I'm really surprised that you can't buy the Star Trek jammies on the Star Trek shop, because I would like some Star Trek jammies. So this one, there was some good stuff. I did like the scenes between Tilly and Saru. I liked Saru, but I liked a lot of the tension in it. This one maybe didn't feel as epic as some of the other episodes have, but I think when we look at the longer game in this, I think this one will still be yes, this had to be there to get us from there to here. We couldn't have just jumped there. And it was enjoyable enough. Giorgio was good mileage, and there was some decent action in it. So overall, not bad. Maybe a bit of a slower one than we're used to. So, final one. Linus using his personal teleporter all the time. I don't think he was out of control with it. I think either he was keeping an eye and making sure he always appeared at inopportune moments for comic timing, or all he's doing is bouncing about the ship in the hope that he can appear at a comedy moment, and every time he does it, it's brilliant. So, and that's all he's going to do now. I hope that's his role in the series. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the episode as well. Do keep up the good work. I always enjoy the episode, and I'll hopefully be back in the next one. Until then, bye for now.
Bye,
It's
sir.
nice.
Thank you.
Someone else who loved Stamets and Corber in the jammies. And I want those jammies. Why are they not selling those jammies on the Star Trek
I'm sure
shop?
it's only a matter of time.
I want some. Then we could have matching jammies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be weird. I'm sorry. I'm not sure I could cope with that. Anyway.
Oh, okay then. Fair enough.
I don't know. Yeah. Anyway.
Fine. if you say so. Fine. Now, Pari said, like Running Man or Wedlock.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Wedlock.
I haven't seen Wedlock either. I suspect we might need to seek this one
I
out.
think we need to find this film.
Because if it's a Rutger Hauer film, you know it's quality.
Yes. it might be split-second quality.
Yes, exactly.
Or it could be Blade Runner quality.
No, it's not going to be Blade
different
Runner
form
quality
of
with a name like
quality.
that, is it? Let's say Rutger Hauer made one really quality movie and the rest... Yeah.
But split-second is fun.
Yes.
And yeah, it's... I don't know what Scavengers is with John Leslie doing a fake spaceship. I don't know that I want to know.
No.
But I like the goo interface. I like the idea of a goo interface.
We see it in action in tonight's episode.
We do, and I like it again.
Mm-hmm.
But then maybe that's just because I like goo.
Yeah. But if last week's was on epic slow filler, I dread think how you think about this week's, guys.
Well, you see, this is the thing. Are we going to have a row?
I don't know.
Because
Do we have to schedule one?
Because you clearly don't like it, and I cried.
All right, more later then. Yes, Michael isn't leaving Discovery, we find out in this episode, sadly. Hey ho. But I like the idea of Linus trolling everybody.
Yes.
Claiming he can't control it.
Yes, no, that is awesome. And actually, it's a shame we don't get another random Linus scene in this. It should be a whole long.
It's a shame we don't get any bloody Linus in this, isn't it? But it's another matter.
No, but it should be a long running gag from the whole season.
Every episode.
Every episode should have a random Linus saying sorry and buggering off again.
Yeah. Anyway, in brief, we have also heard from Andy, the ship I thought was a Miranda class. That's one of the vessels that comes crashing down into Hunhow is actually either... Well, it depends. Andy thinks it's a Europa class from Discovery Season 1, so a lot cheaper for the showmakers to source. Whereas Thomas McCamberley thought it was a California class. I shall leave them to battle between them to find out. He also pointed out, along with Drew, that the original series ships could fire phases on stun, because the Enterprise does just that in a piece of the action and stuns the entire city, pretty much. So shame on Michael for being so murderous.
Yes, it's been too long since I've seen the original series.
No, you might have to do something about that.
We might do, yes. But fair enough. No, I stand corrected. If in universe ships can do stunning, I stand corrected.
Yep. Also heard from Sampo.
And he writes, maybe the real reason is that they tried adding NCC 1013 to their registry and got an error. This ship already exists. So they tried activating the existing ship and got an error. This ship was destroyed in 2258, so they gave up and added an A.
It kind of works, I suppose. And also somebody was claiming that it was to disguise the fact that this is actually the original Discovery, so if they call it an A, it doesn't look like it is. I don't know.
Well, combine it with the refit, I guess, but I think A is too early a letter, though. If you're doing it as a disguise,
Yeah,
bearing
that's
in
true,
mind
actually.
it's the Voyager J.
Yeah, they should have gone for a later letter. Backsy Dave pointed out the issue of the Discovery of the Far Future Eclipso not having the A, so presumably they've got to lose it at some point.
Yeah.
And he said, of course it has a problem because the nacelles are firmly attached. But my friend Boss floated the idea that they may be reattachable. And lo! In this episode tonight, we find he's spot on. So well done, Boss.
Yes. And we heard from Daria, who writes, hello, Orcs. I thought that it being halfway-ish through Discovery Season 3, it was high time to share some thoughts. Kind of pains me to say this, but so my favourite character this season is pretty much everyone except Michael Burnham. I know she's the lead character, and I don't hate her or anything, but must everything be about her?
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. I don't hate her.
No, I don't hate
much.
her. Yeah.
It's too much.
She's
it
annoying,
really is.
but I don't hate her. Yeah.
I don't find her annoying. What I find annoying is the relentless focus on her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not her fault, if you see what I mean.
And I certainly don't have any problems with Sunita Martin Green's
No.
acting. I think
it's
she's
all
really good in
brilliant.
the role. But
It's the writing.
Yeah, it is the way they've written this character so badly, particularly tonight. Oh boy. More of which later.
Yeah, we're not going to agree.
Powder dry.
We're not going to agree. And, sorry, Dara continues. When Adira had the medical biological issue needing her to visit Trill, Hugh goes off to do his nails or something and says Michael down with her. I know, it should have been Hugh. It fucking should have been Hugh. It really, really should.
Yeah.
Self-interruption for the pronoun.
So the dog's now digging up the sofa again.
Self-interruption for the pronoun discussion. So far, it seems that while Blue de Barrio uses they, them, Adira goes by she, her.
So far, yep.
So I'll go with the show on that, as the world she lives in hasn't said otherwise. Of course, many non-binary people use she or he rather than they neo-pronouns, and Adira may well be one of them, even if her actor isn't. That's true. There could be a difference between actor and character.
And there is a point about acting. That
you're not being yourself. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Next week, it falls to Michael to talk to Addis. Oh, that's the guy I called Adidas. Because being a doctor of some standing, Hugh couldn't possibly have any experience in telling some of their loved ones died. I know! Like, what the fuck was that? Maybe I'm misreading this. Or maybe it's just Hugh shirking. Arguably, I've watched enough episodes of Casualty to know that nobody likes passing on the bad news.
Yeah, but it should really be.
But it should be. It so should be. I don't know if it's what I'd have done, but it's hard to disagree with Saru chucking Michael as first officer. I agree. He did the right thing.
Oh, definitely.
She's been heading towards being taken down a peg for a while now. I'd say maybe 3 or 4 pegs, but point taken, I agree. After pitching to Admiral Vance how much the disco crew needed to stay together and work as a unit, as a family, the next thing you know, she's
off.
No, except for me. I know. And it comes up in this episode, and I will deal with it in this episode. But you think particularly of how hurt Tilly is in all of it, all of this, and it's in the episode previous to this, and comes up again in this current one, and. Whether it's what the writers intended or not, I'm afraid it makes Michael out to be horrifically selfish.
Yes, it does.
It does. Anyway, so we're going to agree on that point. If nothing else, we'll agree on that. Yeah, next thing you know, she's LOL, except for me, and taking off after a buddy/love interest on the word of his cat. The cat's better than him? I don't know. Maybe not. He doesn't have much of a character, though, other than to be her squeeze, does he, really? In the recent episodes compared to the original ones. To save his and the other slaves' lives is not wrong at all, but she was weighing it against an active, valid and stated urgent situation, or rather, she wasn't, absolutely. She did the Starfleet equivalent of bunking off early and leaving a jacket over your chair so it looks like you're still in the office. No real discussion of what is at stake for either option. No trying to persuade Saru that she could have someone else sub for her on the bridge if it came to it.
Yeah.
No seeing if they could meet in the middle. I'm not sure she even seemed even slightly divided about the people on Argeth facing death or even more slavery. No, she came across as not giving a shit about... the
Worst first officer ever.
Even worse than Riker.
Far worse than Riker, and I would argue
Chakotay.
worse
Come
than
on,
Chakotay.
bloody hell.
Yeah, I can't think of him being as bad as this.
Bloody
I mean,
hell.
his greatest problem was he was just wet. But he was completely obedient to Janeway, so, you know.
But that's also wrong in a first officer.
Well, yes, he's probably too far the other extreme, but yeah, of the two, you want to go for obedience rather than not giving a crap about the ship.
Yeah,
and
but
the crew.
if you was going to, share a ship with someone, it's going to be anyone other than Chakotay.
Yeah.
If I go down the pub with Chakotay,
I wonder what you were going to say then.
No. Oh, fucking hell! What the fuck do you think of me?
And again, that picture of Robert Beltran with his trousers around his ankles.
Just not. What the fuck?
Again. Hey, who said it?
Fucking hell. He could offer me $1 trillion and I would still punch him in the fucking face, or the nads. Fucking hell, what do you think of me? I know we do not agree on this particular episode of Discovery. I also know you threatened to divorce me for liking Faith of the Heart. But I never, ever thought that you would think that I would even countenance anything remotely sexual with fucking Chakotay. It's like you found the biggest insult
We've crossed the line, folks.
in the world ever. And you threw that insult at your own wife.
Oh dear. Hey, that was your words.
If your life is not fun for the next 7 years, you know the fuck why. What I was going to say was that if I was in a pub with Chakotay, I would down my pint and use my glass to smash his fucking brains in. Down was down my pint. Down was nothing the fuck to do with fucking escalators and fucking anything remotely sexual with Chakotay.
Well, I'm glad we straightened that one out.
I mean, I'd rather fuck a potato!
It could be arranged.
No! Don't!
He did the mash. He did the monster mash. Monster mash. It was a graveyard smash. Smash. It caught on in a flash. Monster mash. He did the monster mash. From the hall of gore in the castle east to the master bedroom where the vampires feast.
Oh God, what is this? It's been a bad weekend for podcasting, hasn't it?
Fucking has! Fucking hell! And now you have to explain the fucking mashed potato story.
I'd forgotten about that. Oh no, I don't think I can. How long have we been married?
24 years.
No.
So far.
No, I meant when the mashed potato thing came up.
Well, it came up when we was engaged and not
Oh,
yet
before
married.
we were married, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I suggested in jest, because naturally, although she took me completely seriously, that I thought it'd be quite sexy to smear her with mashed potato.
He's a fucking weirdo, okay? And I
She
knew
took me
that.
seriously.
I knew that when I married him. He was fucking odd, okay? So I just thought, okay, you know, he gets obsessive about spaceships and shit. So, you know, maybe this is a thing for him. You know, I mean, it's not like he asked me to do anything horrendous. Do you know what I mean? It was just a bit weird.
Just a bit.
And I couldn't get my head round it.
Oh, and you
So
don't mention
I-
to spud you like, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. So, I refused to cook mashed potato for, I think it was 3 years.
I don't know.
Something like that. Because that way it could never come up and it could never be a thing. And he said, and we'd been married for something like 3 or 4 years, and he said, why don't we have mashed potato? And I was just I just went hysterical. I went, no, we're not having mashed potato. That isn't happening. And he'd forgotten. And he was like, what's not happening?
Oh dear. Anyway.
We do now have mashed potato.
Yes.
And no, he doesn't smear it on it.
No, it's far too tasty for that.
So I'm not tasty.
What, compared to mashed potato? Take the fifth!
So I'm not as attractive as mashed potato, and you think I want to go down on Chakotay.
I'm glad we got that straightened out.
Do you really think our marriage is going to last another 24 years at this rate?
Place your bets, folks. Ow, I've laughed so much. My head hurts, literally. Ow.
I'm sorry, Daria. We were in the
Yes.
middle of your feedback,
It all went to pot.
and he hijacked it. Daria continues. She did the Starfleet equivalent of bunking off early and leaving a jacket over your chair so it looks like you're still in the office. No real discussion of what's at stake for either option. No trying to persuade Saru that someone else can sub for her on the bridge if it came to it. No seeing if they could meet her in the middle. I'm not sure she seemed even slightly divided about the people on Argeth facing death or even more slavery. I don't think Tilly wanted to drop Michael in it with Saru, but did she really have much choice? As she says she loves Michael, but as I'm surprised she didn't say, though we know it's true, she also loves Kayla, Owo, Nilsson, Reese and the rest of her Discovery family, and if this went badly it would come back on all of them. Saru could be dropped into a situation where he just doesn't know if his first officer will obey his orders. He doesn't know whether she's there for him. And that is true, and that is the point that she makes. And she doesn't spell it out to that extent, but my knowledge of Tilly as a character means I knew that's what she was bringing with her, if that makes sense, when she was saying all that. Now, that Discovery family, they're putting in great work this season, especially the actors playing the bridge crew. Emily Coates is brilliant, showing us a Kayla Detmer who's really not holding it together. Her face when she snapped during that dinner crew was amazing. Oyin Oladeju put so much into that one look during the montage when Hugh was checking out the traumatised crew over. And all of their fanning out of the future starships when they arrived at the Federation headquarters, which seems to be the real Federation headquarters after all. The alarm parrot guy must be kind of like the Federation headquarters total landscaping or something.
Right. Okay. Ooh, that dates it slightly.
Nice. Okay, a quick handful of thoughts as I'm probably starting to run long. Michelle Yeoh, plainly having the time of her life as Emperor Georgian. David Cronenberg, what the fuck?
Yes.
I'm here for it. Admiral Vance, not a badmiral. In fact, being more reasonable the more you think about it.
Yeah, no,
and in
great.
fact, as far as he's concerned, he's like a present-day army general who suddenly has a bunch of roundheads turning up throwing their weight around. Grudge. Look, if they want to make some short treks called Tilly and the Chonk, I will not say no.
The chonk?
The chunky cat.
Oh, okay.
Saru, Doug Jones. How do you get such genuine emotion through such a mask? Replacement First Officer. Willow would make a lot of sense, being somewhat grounded and could act as a liaison with the world of the 3180s, but I guess we'll see.
Willow?
Until we next discover Daria. P.S. Love when Grudge hails Discovery, but anyone who's had their cat on video chat will know how lucky it is that they didn't open it with Grudge pointing her butt at the camera. Yeah, this is true. It's something about cats showing their arses to cameras. Willow, 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 tell me more, tell me... No?
No. Do you think that's the person who's in charge of security, whose name I can't remember who wasn't in this episode?
Possibly.
Yes, that was the security person.
Oh, okay.
But no,
that would be an interesting choice.
It would have been a logical choice, yes, certainly. But that apparently is not something that this series does, logical choices, but there we go. Right, let's get stuck into Unification Part 3.
Where we're going to have another row.
Possibly.
Although it's not going to be as bad as the one where you think I'm going down on fucking Chakotay.
That's what you said.
No, it's not what I fucking said. It's what you fucking assumed. Because I used the word down, and it was down my fucking pint, not go down on fucking Chakotay.
3 days later.
Anyway, we have...
Do you think I have no self-worth?
Can we not carry on?
Clearly you have no respect for me. Fucking hell.
You see, history forgot this in your time, but the Vulcans and the Romulans were two tribes of the same species that went their separate ways. Your brother started the process of reunifying them.
And he succeeded.
It took centuries after his death, but yes.
But the Vulcans were always the first to share their research with the Federation.
Maybe in the past, but Navarre left the Federation nearly 100 years ago.
We have a sad log of sad from Michael, reflecting that she doesn't fit the uniform anymore. It's all pretty cloying, really. She and Book get it on in a tea time kid-friendly fashion, thankfully, because we had our kids with us at the time.
They're both over 15.
Yeah, and they've seen far worse, believe me. But yes, this is supposed to be, a family show, so that's fair enough. It's not a criticism. It's just like compared to other series. Yeah, that was reassuringly tame. I think it's fair to say.
Well, I don't know. I think for me, I've got no problem with showing sex where it's loving. I'm thinking of Terminator here. It got the original Terminator. One of the reasons it's got the rating as high as it did was because of the sex scene.
Yep.
And the sex scene is an expression of love. It's not a horrible sex scene, which would have justified a higher rating.
Whereas Terminator 2, somebody gets a great big prong through their eye, and that one got away with a
lower rating.
Much lower rating, I think.
Yeah.
12, I think, but anyway.
But yeah, so I get what you're saying, that it's nice that they don't show too much in one sense, but what I'm saying is I kind of react a bit against censoring loving sex scenes.
Mm-hmm. In the Ready Lab, I think it is anyway, Tilly is understandably annoyed with Michael.
Yes.
Yes, because she left her out to dry, basically.
Well, and this is what I was saying about before, that it's like Michael hasn't appreciated... I'm not saying she hasn't appreciated. I think it's more like she's forgotten just how much this crew gave up for her. Mm. And Tilly is her closest friend, and he's saying to Michael, you know, this is the shit you put me through, how dare you? But in like being Tilly, the nicest possible way.
Yeah.
And I got emotional in this scene, but in the right way, in that I was angry at Michael and felt hurt on Tilly's behalf.
Yes. They work out that 3 ships were knocked out by the burn at different times, and that there's a starbase, SB-19, which also should have picked it up on sensors. Michael takes their findings to Admiral Vance Pants in a needlessly silly over-the-head shot highlighting the stupid temporary fall.
Oh, what is... Yeah, I hate that fucking... To be honest, if that was me, I'd be fucking terrified the entire time walking anywhere, because I can't do... have you ever come across... You know those stairs where they're not whole stairs, they're like slats?
Oh, yeah.
And I struggle with them because I'm kind of convinced somehow I'm going to stick my leg through and get stuck. And then I've seen them where they're see-through and they're glass. I can't walk up them or down them. I just can't manage it. It's just like, no, that's not happening. So if I can't manage them, I'm not surviving in this future with the moving weird shit floors are fucked up.
It turns out SB-19 belongs to the artists formerly known as the Vulcans, now called Nivar, because they've merged with the Romulans.
Does Nivar have a meaning, according to Memory Alpha?
Yes, it does, interestingly. It's I think it was a fan writer back in the day coined it as a term in Vulcan, meaning like having 2 sides.
Okay, like Janus. Or, yin and yang?
Yeah, or having 2 different approaches to a problem and stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously the 2 sides are now Romulan and Vulcan. So, whoever came up with that, well done. That's nice bit of research, that. And it's obviously quite a change and a half and an explanation for the episode title, since Spock's work gets referenced.
I like it. And we see him.
We do,
We see the proper Spock of Leonard Nimoy of Lovely.
And another nice nod to continuity, Vance Pants tells Saru and Michael about the Vulcans and Romulans being related, which wasn't discovered by the Federation until after the original series, so they wouldn't know.
No.
Well done.
I like that. They didn't know. Yep.
Navarre left the Federation 100 years ago, which is apparently a teaser thing. Okay, right. Well, I suppose it is. For Trek fans it is. For anybody else, it's like, so.
Yeah.
SB-19, we find out, was set up to find an instantaneous means of travel. When the Vulcans wanted to shut it down, the Federation wouldn't let them. And now they think they caused the burn. Vance Pants realises they might listen if Spock's sister was the one to tell them the burn was caused by other means.
Which I get in that they've obviously tried for ages to have some kind of dialogue with Navarre. They obviously missed them because they were a founder member of the Federation. And if I was that admiral, I would have that same attitude. This might be an in. It doesn't mean it ought to be an in. It doesn't mean it ought to work. But if I was that admiral, I'd try it.
It makes no sense because they don't know Michael existed because they all got erased, didn't it? I mean, that was the whole continuity band-aid at the end of last season. That everybody's going to deny that Michael was a daughter of Sarek and that this crew existed. So why are they going to recognise her when she turns up? Because there'll be no records of her. But no, apparently she turns up and everybody's like, oh, it's Michael, Spock's sister. It's like, what? So on the one hand, they get continuity references back to series decades ago, but they can't get a continuity reference right for last season. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, I don't know. It's my thinking, and it's guesswork. It's not based on anything. Is that if the whole wiping of the records and everything else had been a Federation thing when they split, because there would have been people who knew and memories and whatever.
Am I not remembering rightly that there was a whole business with Spock and Amanda saying, we won't be able to acknowledge you as our daughter, existing as our daughter anymore, or something like that, wasn't it?
No, there was, but there would have been other people who remembered Michael at the Vulcan.
But then again, that goes against the whole point of the whole stupidness of the last season. Again, the ridiculousness of a prequel series because it just causes complications because all the things
so
don't match what happens later on.
Let me rephrase this, what I'm trying to say, because I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just taking a different approach, okay? Let me rephrase this with the whole thing about buttons. Because I take the same approach to this, okay? So, in Next Gen, nobody had any buttons, did they?
No, right, okay.
And it never made any fucking sense, did it?
No, or pockets for that matter, yeah.
Right. And in Picard, which is set after, we get buttons and pockets and shit.
Yes, that's a fashion thing you could just about argue
Arguably,
with.
but also arguably, it's about going, you know what, that was a bit stupid.
Yeah. But
So-
once you've erased all the records about some, you can't then go,
Yeah, whereas...
that was stupid because you've forgotten about them.
No, right. What I'm saying is, erasing records is one thing. But the idea that you can persuade people, all the people who interacted with Michael in the Vulcan Institute and everyone else, to forget her existing, for me, that's one of the, it was the we have to pretend Michael never existed even though loads of people knew her. That's the bit that for me
That's the stupid bit, yeah.
didn't work in the previous one. So wiping records I got as an idea, okay? The idea that people would somehow not remember, for me, was always a flaw at the end of the last season. So in the same way as Picard's come along, and without any explanation, without trying to justify it, it's just gone, hey, buttons and pockets, they're a thing. For me, that's what this is doing. It's just gone, hey, Vulcan's remembering a person who is a member of
I mean, for me, there is a
society.
big difference between the two, but never mind.
All I'm saying is, that's the approach I'm taking.
It's
Never
stupid,
did.
but it's not the most stupid thing in this episode, so let's move on.
Okay.
Then we get the clip of Nimoy as Spock, which is a nice touch.
I love it.
Picard gets a name drop, which is another nice touch.
Yeah.
And you realise that this is the first time that Michael has seen Spock old.
I cried.
And you get that's a really nicely acting moment.
I
so,
love
yeah.
I sorry, I cried.
Aw.
I know that you don't like this episode, but I got very emotional all over the shop.
Oh, well, there was an awful lot of tears all the way through. It was all very OTT, but never mind.
Oh no, I was mostly crying along with the characters. I cried when Tilly cried. I cried at the Spock scene.
I mean, I don't mind a few tears, but like this series all the way through, it's just every episode has got to have hugs and tears, and it's like, oh, for heaven's sake, can we not just move on? God, dear. I mean, occasionally to do that, but it's just every episode. It's cloying, it's sickly, it's annoying. Anyway, absolutely mystifyingly, Saru promotes Tilly to being first officer.
You see, now.
Now, you're not going to defend this, are you?
Yes, but...
She's literally the most
hang
junior
on.
officer on the f***ing ship. It makes no sense at all, her being first officer.
Right. Our youngest, Quinn, called this.
She did, and I mocked her at the time.
Yes.
But, it's like, actually, turned out to be right. It's like, right, so this is the level we're working on, is it? A 14-year-old?
15?
Sorry, I lose count. I lose count at my own age, to be fair. But...
Yeah. Anyway, what they said was that they called it because when Saru was struggling with his own decisions, and he went to Tilly, and one of the jobs of a first officer is being a listening ear / confidant for the captain.
And there's absolutely nobody else on the ship who can do that. That's sort of
Not that we've seen.
that hasn't spent some time as an officer, because that's the whole point. She's got bugger all experience.
Yeah, but...
And that's what a number one has to have. I mean, anyway, we'll come to the later scenes, but
Yeah,
it's just
but-
absolutely ridiculous. I'm
But
sorry.
what Quinn also said was that when Saru did go to Tilly, what Tilly said was, you've got to think of the whole ship. You've got to think of Starfleet. You've got to do the right thing. And that was what made Quinn call Tilly as first officer. That it's partly that Saru feels able to talk to Tilly, and you need that in a first officer, that the captain can talk
Well,
to
you
the
do,
first
but does that
officer.
mean he can't talk to any of the other officers? Because that's a pretty damning indictment.
Possibly not in the same way. And what Quinn was saying was that...
And
it
your
was-
first officer shouldn't be just the person you feel the most pally with. They need to have you need to have
Yes.
somebody with experience, for heaven's sake. She does not have the experience to be a first officer. It's absolute madness. You make an ensign a first officer. You'd only do that if there's literally only ensigns left. Madness. Absolute chuffing madness. They are hailed by the president of Navarre, who's called Terina. It seems a bit mad that they're being hailed by the president to me personally, but there you go. She had flunkies or something to do that sort of thing. But to be fair, she did know they were coming, so she knows
Maybe
this
it
is a
was
momentous thing. You know, it kind of makes sense, but just about.
Well, not necessarily. Maybe she's just like, ooh, personship thing, mine. And she has the clout to go, mine.
Well, it's certainly, obviously, this is the first contact they've had with the Federation for, over 100 years, so
yeah.
In some ways
it's momentous,
it's
so maybe she just called it because she wanted it.
Yeah. Played by Tara Rosling, who was in a couple of episodes of Season 4 of The Expanse.
I thought I recognised her. Who did she play?
I don't know.
Andy!
Anyway, she's cool with Michael being Spock's sister, so all that cover-up didn't work very well, did it? Apparently, any new theory about...
But I never thought it would.
Any new theory about the origin of the burn would be tearing up old wounds between the Vulcans and Romulans, so permission denied. Michael then either orders a takeaway or evokes some convenient Vulcan science wing-wang nonsense. I think it's the latter.
I love the idea she's ordering a takeaway.
Yeah, that's what it initially sounded like.
At the time, it was just like brilliant. Yes.
And apparently this is trial by debate. Oh, how thrilling. Serena beams aboard and we say they pointlessly still have a transporter chief, even though everybody's got personal transporters, so what the hell they're doing, I don't know.
Well, my guess is that, and it's only a guess, because we're not told this, so it's a guess, is that personal transporters are short range.
One would hope. That would make some sense, yes.
But it is just a guess. We're not told this. No. So I can't criticise you for complaining. This is my headcanon.
Then Michael gets an advocate from the, I can't pronounce this, the Kwisatz Haderach,
yeah.
The Romulan warrior nuns from Picard. Those people.
Yeah, and I love that there's a callback to Picard. I love Picard. Why is it not available on DVD?
It is available, I believe, at the beginning of February.
I want it.
Yes, we should be ordering that, yes. The consequences for Michael are her reputation as Spock's sister being destroyed, which, again, they shouldn't know about in the first place.
Yeah, they shouldn't. The idea that some people know, I kind of get, because it would have been passed on as rumour.
Yeah, everybody knows, apparently.
But
it turns out the sister is Michael's mum, Gabrielle. Okay. I suppose that just about works.
It fits. If she found herself landed within that timeline.
Yes.
We don't know that she didn't.
That's a big if, but presumably she was.
But if she did, I totally see her going
what the chances,
there.
Eh?
No, but if that's where she landed, with it,
convenient.
I totally see her gravitating towards that. Because she felt she was fighting a lost cause her whole life.
She tells her daughter that the Nivar jury are made up of different parties, effectively, that they've all got their own particular beefs. One of them's a Romulan, one's a Vulcan. I'm not sure whether the other woman was halfway between, I don't know.
I think.
Yes, possibly. Anyway, Saru asks Tarina for a catch-up on the Federation's stormy relationship with Nivar over the past century or so, and I was expecting loads of juicy gossip, but we never heard about that. Yeah. She points out the Federation was overstretched before the burn, and obviously that's only got worse.
And it's interesting, they also mention, and I can't remember where this comes, but it just stuck in my mind, that they were getting low on dilithium before the burn.
Yeah. Well, it's to do with the Federation being so stretched out, so they were burning up loads of it in order to keep in contact with one another.
Okay.
Kind of makes sense. Anyway, cue Illogical. Oh, how exciting. Take a much-needed break, though, with Stamets and Tilly, where she shares Saru's offer, and understandably Stamets is not impressed, saying taking orders from her would be deeply weird, which is true.
Yeah, I can understand.
Gabrielle tells Michael she can't be trusted because she's not telling them how out of place she's feeling in Starfleet, which I'm not sure how relevant that is, but apparently it comes to pass. And the Logic-thon continues. I found something more boring than the courtroom drama, anyway. Yikes.
See, I didn't mind all of this and the Logic-a-thon and whatever. I think...
Oh, really? It was paint drying.
No, I didn't find that.
And it was so flatly directed as well. I mean, this could have done with a bit of twisty-turny camera work just to keep me awake, to be honest.
I completely agree it was directed in a flat way. I'm not going to argue with that. But in terms of what was being said and everything, for me... I think the reason that I didn't find it boring was that because of the conversation that had gone before with Michael and her mum, you knew that there was more at stake than what was being said. So you're there and you're looking and listening for hidden subtext. And so it makes it more than the sum of its parts. what it was lacking for me was direction that reflected that it was more than the sum of its parts. And I just don't think we got that.
Where it takes off slightly is when effectively Michael's mum turns against her.
That's like fucking hell.
And the look Michael gives her is just brilliant.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have a great moment from Sonika Martin-Green.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you say about the character, you cannot fault the actor.
Yeah. Gabriel brings up Michael's long list of instances when she's broken orders.
Yeah.
Quite rightly demanding why she should be trusted by the folk from Navarre.
Yeah.
Burnham's comeback is that the good she and her crew have done in the past to serve the greater good. Which doesn't address her untrustworthiness ultimately.
No.
Why are you struggling with where you fit in now, Gabe asks, and Michael admits she's afraid she'll lose everything due to the fact that the universe has changed or something. I never quite worked out where that was going.
I'm with you, I don't understand either. My only feeling at the time was that Michael didn't understand. In other words, our confusion is her confusion.
And then that somehow leads to the Romulans and Vulcans falling out with each other, just as Tarina predicted. But again, the logic doesn't follow, ironically.
Well, it doesn't, because what's happening is that Michael is becoming more emotional, and that's automatically going to drive more of a wedge between the Vulcans and the Romulans, because the Romulans don't shun emotion in the way that the Vulcans do.
Anyway, in order to prevent them falling out, Michael withdraws her request for the data, which is a good move.
And this is the
All
bit that
credit to that.
I know. This is the point at which I'm like, yes, now you're being a Starfleet officer.
Yes, yeah, now you're getting it right. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It seemed like a bit of a jump from where she was before. But anyway.
I'm not sure that it was. Maybe it was. I'm not going to argue over it. But for me, this is like, yes, now, finally, you've stepped up to the plate. Now, finally, you're being the person you always could have been, but for some reason weren't because of a whole year and a cat or something.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
And this is the point where the Michael we see here, to me, fits with the Michael we saw the previous season.
Uh-huh.
It's felt disjointed before now, and the only explanation we've been given is the year's gap. But the Michael we see in that moment, to me, fits with the Michael that we have seen before.
Gabe goes to visit a sulking daughter. Apparently, Taryn has decided, though, that Michael is to be trusted and has given her the data. And we get some, I granted, understandable sobby hugs with her mum because, wow, this is quite an important emotional moment. So, no criticism for that. But, small doses, I think, really, rather than constant sobby, huggy all the way through. Stamets calls Tilly to the Spore Drive lab where all the bridge crew tell her to say yes to the offer because, I don't know, perhaps they don't want to have to follow after Saru and smell his wafty sea farts all the time. That's literally the only reason I can think, because it makes, as I've repeatedly said, no sense at all for Tilly to be the first officer. Anyway, Saru gets the live long and prosper treatment from Taryn. So I'm glad they haven't abandoned that, at least.
Yeah, I like it.
And Michael tells Book that she belongs on the Discovery. I don't quite know how she's come to that conclusion. She's only had a conversion experience, but anyway. I presume that's now going to mean she's going to follow orders. We can only hope.
We hope so. I mean, I don't know. I mean, she says she belongs on the Discovery, and I kind of think she always did. But I'm not sure, A, why she's telling him, because I'm not sure he would have disagreed with her anyway. And B, unless it means she follows orders, unless we see her following orders from now on, it means fuck all, to be honest. If we see her from now on following orders and doing what she's told, absolutely, and I'm not going to argue with it, but it remains to be seen as far as I'm concerned.
We pull back from the docking bay and somehow Discovery is looking even more sat on than before since the refit.
I know!
The nacelles are still connected, by the way, at this point. It's bizarre.
I know. Yeah, no, you're right. They connected and then they jumped. But then that's an extra step, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's an extra thing to fucking go wrong. If they weren't disconnected in the first place, you wouldn't have to connect them in order to jump. Leave them the fuck connected, you fuckwits!
So anyway,
This makes me cross.
Ironically, I find it a boring and illogical episode in many ways for an episode that's all about Vulcan.
Whereas I cried multiple times, I got really emotional. Generally, I enjoyed it.
But what did other people think? We've heard from Andy.
No, sir, I don't like it. No, I don't like it at all. No, I didn't enjoy this episode of Discovery at all, I'm afraid. A lot of problems with it, I think. Okay, so firstly, some positives, yeah? So, on the positive side, the stuff between Saru and the Nivar president, fantastic. That was great. More of that, please. I really enjoyed that. The scene when Tilly calls Michael out on her bullshit and says, it's not for you to make these decisions, it's for me to make these decisions. Mwah, chef's kiss. More of that throughout the series. And most importantly of all, we see that when the Discovery does a spore jump, the nacelles magically stay with the ship. Don't know how, don't care. Just, it looked pretty. So there you go. Firstly, the episode name, Unification 3. What a bait and switch. I mean, this had barely anything to do with the TNG episode, in my opinion. I think a much better name for this episode would have been Nivar, which, if you go and look on Memory Alpha, is a term that was coined in the 60s by a Star Trek fan. It means two forces. I think there was a ship in Enterprise named the Nivar. Would have been a much better connection, and it would have tied in to the whole, Burnham versus Saru, Discovery versus Starfleet, Romulans versus Vulcans, Nivar versus the Federation. There was a lot that you could do with it, but this bait and switch unification, it just left me feeling disappointed, and it was like, well, why even bother? How can I say this without sounding like one of those people that just hate on the sake of hating? I really am not enjoying Michael in this series. She just comes across as exceptionally whiny. She doesn't want to be there. She wants her cake and to eat it. And look, I know that Suniko is capable of acting. We had some great performances throughout seasons 1 and 2. Her performances are just really not working for me in this series, and are detracting from the story as a whole. And this whole courtroom scene, was that bit where she says, "I withdraw my request," and walks out. It felt like they really wanted that to feel like, a big courtroom, you can't handle the truth moment, or something like the drumhead from TNG. But it just felt like really poorly written fan fiction. I didn't enjoy it at all. And you all know I'm a fully paid up member of the Tilly fan club. Love me some Tilly. But no, you can't make her the XO. No, it doesn't make any sense. It undermines the position. You can't have an ensign serving in the capacity of an executive officer. I am speaking to contacts within the US Navy and other militaries to find out if there's any precedents, but I don't think this can happen. I think what Saru wants Tilly to be is maybe his counsellor or his yes man, just someone to go along with. I don't know what Saru's thinking, but no. A better option, I think, would have been Lieutenant Willer, who is, I think, Vance's security chief. She came on a mission to the seed ship, because then you've got an interesting dynamic of, where do her loyalties lie? Will she dob the crew in when we do something naughty or wrong, or will she come to respect and see that actually Discovery is the greatest ship in the fleet and all that jazz? So, missed opportunity there. I mean, it might still end up being her, because apparently Tilly's only the temporary first officer. But no, that didn't work. This whole episode didn't work. I mean, I was never a fan of those absolute candor monks in Picard, and Michael's mum being one. It feels a bit like really poorly written fan fiction, in just my opinion. Everyone is free to like what they like, but this episode, for my money, was the weakest of the season. So there you go. Those are my thoughts. I'm going to go and skulk around sickbay for a bit. Ta-ta!
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
so Andy agrees with you that just in terms of the way a military organisation works, and I know there's an argument about whether or not Starfleet's a military organisation, the most recent Great Derelict addresses this problem, so do have a listen. But whatever anybody else says, I think it's a dual organisation. It's both scientific and military, and you can't take the military out. That's my thinking. So what Andy is saying is, in a military context, whatever you might think, Tilly just can't be first officer.
Makes no sense.
So I stand corrected. She can't be. I might like her to be. I might understand why Saru's done it, but
Tilly is confidant to Saru. That makes some
counsellor.
sense.
That does work.
Yep. But not as in charge of all the upper
And,
officers.
and if that's the way it is in a military organisation, I'm not personally someone who sees Starfleet as exclusively scientific. I do see it as military as well. If it won't work, it won't work. I stand corrected. See, I can admit I'm wrong occasionally. You might want to, preserve this recording in aspect.
Yeah, maybe use that as a quote for future. Where I disagree with Andy, I think Michael withdrawing that request did have a dramatic impact.
I do think it did, yes.
Because that was clearly the right thing to do, because you could see the dissension it was sowing amongst the Romulans. I think part of the problem is it's not clear where the dissensions come from, beyond the fact that the president has already mentioned they already existed. But yeah, ultimately it's like she did the right thing, so that's okay.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, because I don't think she has to understand where the dissension is coming from. The point is she can see it. The
connection to unification is literally thematic. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no plot connection beyond the fact we get that short clip of Spock. But, it's just the theme of the Romulans and the Vulcans getting together again.
I think Nivar would have been a better name for the episode, though,
it would be cool.
given why the name came about.
Yeah.
I think actually it would have had more meaning, to be honest.
And ultimately, it is the weakest of the season. I think for the main reason for me just being the whole Vulcan logic off was a big turn off, basically.
Whereas I liked it, thinking of how I feel about it compared to other episodes, I think it's fair to say I enjoyed the other episodes more than this one. It's just that I don't see this as bad. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, so the level is suitably high. That the fact that this might be one of the lower ones doesn't matter to you.
So it's not low.
Yes.
I'm not saying it's better than any of the others. I agree with the idea it's the weakest of the season. It's just for me that doesn't make it weak by definition.
Yeah.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. But we do need to hear from you, Andy, who she was from The Expanse. Rubbish. And I'm sorry, but do tell me. Thank you. And we've heard from Doreen, who writes, I enjoyed this one on my first watch, but then I realised it's a fairy tale, and a sanitised one at that. I was reminded of the chain of command. I had thought Saru was trying to do the impossible, making an ensign the first officer, but now I realise it's actually untenable. I think Tilly should be the morale or well-being officer, or even the ship's counsellor. Yes, perhaps I'm making up titles here, but Disco writers, it makes far more sense than making an ensign the first officer, even if Tilly is the best. Why is the Michael the only one who gets to have her mum? Can she not be a strong, independent woman? No, apparently she needs a man and her mummy. Red card, Disco writers.
But very good point about Tilly being a counsellor, yes.
That would work.
Yeah. We've also heard from Martin.
Hi there, it's Martin with some thoughts on Unification Part 3. I'm really enjoying the podcast, by the way, and it's become a little thing I do while cooking dinner on a Sunday. I cook dinner and listen to the Borgcast and your thoughts on the latest episode of Discovery. I think this week will be a particularly interesting one because I know I know a little bit about the Vulcan and the Romulan lore sort of thing, but I guess there are people who get a lot more out of this episode than I will. I have already seen a few opinions that have been divided a bit online, so it'd be interesting to hear everybody's thoughts on that. Once again, we seem to have a Michael-centric episode, so it's again kind of for the second week in a row, just it just leaves the rest of the crew kind of floundering a little bit. Because you had Saru, who was again still kind of involved in the main plot, and Doug Jones, as ever, is brilliant, as in showing the Vulcan president around and sort of trying to encourage them to get back into the Federation. And Tilly, of course, has now been promoted to acting number one. I'm not quite sure about that. I mean, that's good. Nelly, I'm not really sure if she wasn't there are more people who are a bit more qualified than Michael, and not Michael Tilly. I mean, Michael, indeed, because she's been trying to find out her own way in the Federation. It does look like she has come back round to believing in the Federation and wanting to stick with them. So I feel that's probably it resolved, wasn't it? Because she was thinking of leaving with Book. I don't think there was any doubt that she was going to get the data they wanted, but in this kind of science quorum way, which was very interesting, like a kind of science smackdown, which seems to come down less about facts but more about emotion, which is again a lot of programs seem to do these days. All seems to become about the main character and her issues rather than the actual facts. And it seems to hinge on Michael bearing her soul. Yes, which I'm not really kind of sure of, because first of all, they're trying to convince the Admiral to let them do this, and then he'll say, "Yep, actually, yep, Spock's sister. Yeah, you might actually be the way in." And then it's like, "Oh no, sorry, I can't possibly." All right, okay, we're back to get that again, and she even kind of closes the quorum thing. Just I don't know if there's any reason at all for that. I mean, I'm probably sound like I'm a bit down on this episode, but I not really. I still enjoy it. I think it was still enjoyable. I'm still enjoying the ongoing plot lines, and of course, Sonequa Martin Green was very good. I thought she was very good as Michael. She continues to impress, and we see her mother back as well. Her mother's back, and I know I don't know what people are going to think about that. And she's one of the sisters of culottes, or whatever they were called, from Picard, I believe, the ones with absolute candour. I don't know if we've seen them elsewhere in the series, but yes, I remember them from Picard, and I can't remember the name of the main guy in that, perhaps because it's how much it made of an impression. But okay, well that might be interesting going forward. This is a nice little link, which is always appreciated. So yeah, I don't think it was one of the better ones, but again, I still enjoyed it. It was still a lot of fun. Okay, so I'll speak to you again another time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, the Sisters of Culottes.
Brilliant, yes. Yes, they were introduced in Picard, and yes, they're a new thing, except not a new thing, but they are a new thing. If you see what I mean, because they obviously haven't featured in any of the series, because the other series are older.
But also, there's no problem with that, because we knew so little about Romulus. It's not like...
Yeah, and both Picard and this now being set in the future, we're free to do whatever.
Yeah.
Except mess up continuity between seasons. But anyway.
Yeah, no, that they have done with this, but never mind. It is another very Michael-centred episode, and most of the rest of the crew don't get anything to do at all, apart from stand in a line and say yes.
Yeah. And Sarah gets a bit at least, and the
Tilly
stuff
gets
between him and the Vulcan presence good. But yeah, until he stammers a couple of lines, and that's it. It's like the rest really are just.
There wasn't even any jet,
Nope. No Linus.
No. But Sonequa Martin Green is brilliant in this. I mean, the fault is with the writing. It's definitely not with her acting. What did the Llama God have to say?
I'm looking forward to this, because he's a big fan of Tilly. Although he has entitled his email "Never Say Never Again."
Nice.
Oh dear.
Nice.
Lamgard log Scott date Fika Unik Fikatsi Og. We are never, ever, ever getting back together. Okay, in this week's episode, and problems right from the start, because for an episode called Unification Part 3, there is something incredibly wrong with this episode, and that is, there's just no beige. We need to see more beige in this episode. You see Unification? I think beige. Yeah, not enough beige in this episode. Already a terrible, awful episode. Actually, no, this was alright, actually. Not a stellar episode, not the best of them. You can imagine what you'll be making of this episode, given that it focuses on your favourite character of all time, which is Michael Burnham. Yeah, responsible for the burn, it's Michael Burnham, she burned him. Yes, it's her. The episode's all about her and her insecurities, and where she wants to belong, and what her family is to her, etc. So, yeah, if you're not particularly enjoying Michael so far, I can imagine you're not going to be enjoying this episode very much. For my part, I kind of liked it. There was an interesting little problem that was presented. The fact that Michael actually got used by Admiral, and I'm really liking the Admiral, by the way, because he's not a bad Admiral, he doesn't take much shit, and he's also willing to do what's right for the moment. He's just trying to do his job in a very difficult situation, so he's a bit of a pragmatist, really, and I kind of like that and appreciate that. So yeah, the fact that he uses Michael, given how much importance she puts on herself, how much she values her own self-worth, the fact that she's actually used for that own same self-worth this week is kind of a nice little bit of poetry there, a bit of karma maybe. But yeah, hopefully this will put an end to her does she belong here or does she not story, because it was looking at the start of the episode like maybe we were sort of going for a discovery that wasn't going to have Michael Burnham featuring in it, which would be an interesting thing, wouldn't it? But although she gets to save the day here, she also gets to face up to some truths which are a bit uncomfortable for her. She gets called out on her behaviour, even by her own mum, which was good. And yeah, and I like the fact that her mum has shown up now, so we're not going to have a season-long arc with her trying to find her mother, although it seemed weird like she'd kind of forgotten about her as well. So it was nice that she showed up. Nice that it wasn't just overly emotional. Nice that there was a practical use to her appearance. So yeah, I liked that side of things. And the solution to the end of the episode, to the problem they had of the data sharing, was very Star Trek, and it's all about trust, isn't it? I mean, she says in the episode herself, I don't need to reiterate, but I will anyway, is that, yeah, she's going to do a thing for someone else, even without certainty of reciprocation. So, yeah, trust. It's an episode about trust, so that's good, I guess. As I say, not the worst, but yeah, it's not too bad either. One of the big problems I think people are going to have is with Nivar, because we'd never have thought they were going to leave the Federation, would we? Hey? I guess that's why they called it that. But really, this isn't an inaccurate representation of the Vulcans, at least as we were presented with them in Star Trek Enterprise. They're always shown from that show to be aloof and questioning of their involvement in the foundation of the Federation, and yes, whilst that series definitely has a lot of problems about it, it at least shows us that view of the Vulcans, and the fact that they've now walked away from the Federation is quite in keeping with that. So I don't have too much of a problem with this, especially given the social issues they've been facing, given the reunification with the Romulans. So, I mean, it's disappointing, but then we've got a future where Earth has also seceded, so both the founding members of the Federation have left the Federation, but their ideals are continuing, and yeah, that's an interesting theme there, and I'll be interested to see how long it takes to bring both of those planets back into the Federation. But the Vulcans themselves do, of course, continue to be just as Vulcans as always been. As Joe put it, that ceremony was so extra. The Vulcans are dramatic bitches. Yes, they are. All candles and incense. I'm sure a load of people have loved this, but yeah, these are Vulcan ceremonies, aren't they? Is this much drama and logical? I don't know, but they seem to like it. Also quite enjoyed the fact that the president was called Trina. I know it's Tarina, but yeah, it's Trina. You're right, Trine. President Trine. The other big thing about the episode is Michael's replacement, and it turns out to be Tilly, to literally no one's surprise, because the way that she and Saru have been getting on, it seemed to make sense. It wasn't a big surprise. It makes absolutely no sense in terms of command structures and HR processes, as has been pointed out elsewhere, and this is much more in keeping with the J.J. Abrams' 09 movie, which itself features promotional practices from the Star Wars movies. Hey, the good thing, you can be a general, which don't really work for Starfleet. No, they don't. But given the sort of situation they're operating in here, with a vastly reduced fleet, and one assumes a vastly reduced number of service personnel, I guess so. One would have assumed there'd be more qualified people on the ship, but if the role of a number one is to keep the captain straight, then I guess actual experience and rank doesn't matter so much as a willingness or ability to call someone out. So, yeah, maybe Tilly's the right person for that, so we'll see about that. And coming with Michael's decision from Starfleet is what's going to happen to her own book, which I'm sure you're not particularly interested in, but for those that are interested, it was nice to see the book got his shirt off within the first 25 seconds of the episode or something. But the big question really to whether the book remains or not is, his ship's taking up a lot of the shuttle bay. Isn't it about time that... Yeah, it's taking up way too much of the shuttle bay. Isn't it about time that he moved out of there? Because it doesn't look like they got room for much else, really. So, yeah, that's a bit of an odd one. Not a huge amount to say about this episode, really, because a large part of it was taken up with all that ceremony stuff. But as I say, if that bit's been resolved and we've got Michael with less angst, then that'll be good. And it was nice to see the crew coming together for Tilly. So, not a bad episode. Not the best episode so far this season, but not a bad episode either. As ever, I'll be looking forward to finding out what you actually made of this as opposed to my assumptions. I hope everybody's keeping safe as tears continue to fall all around us. And until next time, thank your trust.
Hello, Scraplid. That's an interesting one. In terms of the role or whatever of number one, is it supposed to be that your job is to keep the captain on the straight and narrow? Because if that's the most important thing, then Tilly is a logical choice.
It's not the most important thing, but it is an important thing. I mean, I would argue the most important thing is to be the person who steps up when the captain isn't available. So that's why it needs to be a senior officer.
Okay.
You know. That for me would be the obviously they need to be somebody who does keep an eye on the captain, because they're the one who, if it all goes horribly wrong, have got to overrule them.
Yeah.
But I mean that happens so rarely that, and it certainly was not going to happen with Saru, is it? So one would hope. But they've also got to be somebody who has the respect of the other officers, which they're all kind of keen for her to be it. But it just does kind of surprise me that nobody else is.
Yeah.
With more experiences going, hang on a minute. What?
Yeah.
Cheese me off, I tell you.
Yeah, unless none of them have the same relationship with Saru.
Well, we haven't been given any indication either way. Cause
no, we haven't, you're right.
The problem is that this series is so much all about Michael and then sort of the secondary step down is Tilly and Saru.
They've gone the whole Picard.
Let's face it, it wasn't until season 2 we actually learnt the first names of some of this bridge crew, for heaven's sake. They've been such, add-ons. I mean, they've got such potential, but they don't seem
Yeah.
at all willing to explore them as characters.
Until they're about to die.
Until they're about to die, generally, yes. That's a bad sign if they start getting a bit more character written into them. Hey-ho.
Well, there was more of Stamets and Colbert, wasn't there, last?
Yes, there was. There was, and we need more of them, I think.
Yes, and they're in their jams.
And I still want to see engineering, damn it. But anyway. But you're right, there is the lack of beige, and I'm quite happy with that. Thank you very much. That's a reference to Unifications Part 1 and 2, which some of the beigest episodes of Next Generation.
Yeah.
And Next Generation could be pretty beige at times, but wow.
Yeah.
Yes. And yeah, I'm quite keen on Vance Pants as well. He's all right. It's quite.
I quite like him. He's not a Badmiral, is he?
He's not a bad one. He hasn't got any. It'd be nice if he grew a sense of humour, I think, but perhaps that doesn't go together with being an admiral. I don't know.
Or maybe just not in that context when you're with,
Yeah.
sort of junior staff that you don't know that well.
And I didn't have a problem with the Vulcans and Romulans in this in a way that I had more of an issue with them in Enterprise, to be honest. They seemed, actively hostile in Enterprise.
Yeah, in Enterprise, because it was so soon after First Contact, I struggled with making sense of it, because if that's how hostile that they were, why did they go and make First Contact anyway? They clearly, it felt like they didn't want it. Do you know what I mean?
No,
And it didn't make sense to me. Whereas here, all sorts of shits happened because of the burn and just the passage of time, and then they've reunified. So, the idea that they might be a bit different is logical, and the idea that they would be exactly the same as the next gen, I think that would have jarred if being united with the Romulans hadn't changed them.
Yes. Well, thank you to everybody who's fed back.
Thank you.
Next week we shall be covering the episode of The Sanctuary. Okay. Interesting. Maybe getting a bit religious with that one, you never know. But we'll catch you next time. Take care. Cheery bye.
Cheery bye.
With thanks to Andy Palastides for the Borgcast Discovery artwork. All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
Find our website at borgcast.libsyn.com.
We have a Facebook page, and we have a YouTube channel as well.
You can find the Borgcast playouts on Spotify for your listening pleasure.
Visit our Tumblr site at borgcast.tumblr.com, where you'll find images accompanying the episodes discussed in this cast.
Send emails or MP3s to borgcast@gmail.com.
Or you can contact us via Twitter on rev_org or borgcastammo. Hashtag Borgcast.
They did the monster mash. It was a graveyard smash. It caught on in a flash. They did the monster mash. The zombies were having fun. The party had just begun. The guests included Wolfman, Dracula, and his son.
Shut it down!
Hey!